Sure. Let's talk about Rekieta. All right. Illicit clips begin here.
Like, they'll have to change it on their own.
Right. So what do you say to people who are like, Nick's changed, his content's changed? Like they formed that opinion about you. Well, what got them to that opinion? Why do people say, well, Nick Rekieta is not what he used to be?
Well, they're probably right. I don't know. What do you say to the you've changed things? Like, well, I mean, I guess it's your perspective on what it is. Do I talk about comics and anime as much? No, way less. I'm not covering any cases in those areas. So certainly that is changed.
Oh, news hamster, you snuck up on me. Get out of here. Sneaky little mouse.
The subject matter I've covered has changed. If you found me by watching me cover live trials, when I'm covering Rittenhouse and Johnny Depp, I'm putting in between 12 and 17 hours a day, 5 days a week for weeks and weeks at a time. I can't do that most of the time. Even when I would like to. And usually if there is a trial that it has sufficient level of popularity, it would be very profitable personally for me to do that. But I just can't, man. I got 5 kids. I got a wife. We have tons of family obligations and events that we go to. I teach at our homeschool co-op.
He's had 5 kids for a while, though. Like when he did all those other trials, he had 5 kids. I think the issue that he has now is that he simply is unable to remain sober for the duration of those streams, and they are so profitable, like to the tone of like 6 figures, that it's nuts to not do them unless you literally just cannot, because you can hire people to cover you. You can find people to cover you at your micro school thing. You can find someone to babysit, but I mean, his kids are older now, so they really need less chaperoning than ever before. I don't buy the whole I'm just so busy that I can't do anything, because it's like at this point in your life, you should definitely be more situated, and you should have these routines figured out enough that you can actually take care of business. But I don't know. I mean, it's like, I think that him not covering trials is also like one of the least interesting changes that he's done. Like, it's just a cost loss opportunity for him to miss those things. However, I wouldn't even say that's like, probably for his actual mega fans, that's probably a high complaint that they have. But for like everybody else just watching him from the sidelines, it's like that's a minor footnote. That's like a symptom of a broader problem, as opposed to the problem in and of itself.
All of those things get pushed to the side when there's a trial. So for me, like, if that's what you found me doing, where I'm spending 80 hours a week streaming, well, and then you come in, you're like, why is he only doing 4 shows this week? It's like, because I don't want to kill myself yet. And I don't want to start wanting to kill myself either. So maybe I've changed in that way. And then there's this other aspect where people impose upon me a set of values because I am married. I've been married for 19 years. And that my wife and I are like, that's it. We don't have prior major relationships, really. We have 5 children. We homeschool them, and we're Christian. People decided then that meant we were a specific brand of Christianity. And then they will identify various opinions I've had on certain things and say they are definitely this. And then if you violate that image, you're guilty of some sort of hypocrisy, whether or not you actually possess that opinion. People decided that you did. And so then, but again, what do you do? Like, change.
I remember when Nick Rekieta did like a 30-minute long diatribe about how anyone watching Cuties was like a pedophile, and it was an indefensible abuse of children, and how it deserved to be prosecuted under the Texas child pornography statutes. And then I remember how a couple of years later, when Dick Masterson and Vito Gasaldi were talking about Cuties and defending it as artistic expression, he completely 180'd and said that actually it wasn't child pornography. It was actually pushing the boundaries on freedom of speech. Remember how he completely and totally changed his entire tune on this thing that he was very fiery and passionate about at the time that it happened, to the complete and total opposite of it, only because of the circumstances around him had also changed. So that's why people call him a hypocrite. It's not that he is not Christian enough for them. That's a very lawyerly answer. I want to point out, by the way, this guy has a very pretty boy face, and I don't like it. I don't like this other guy's face at all. I don't know who. I've seen him before. I think he interviewed DSP and maybe some other person that I've talked about. And I think I even mentioned then that I don't like his face. However, I really need to reiterate that I hate his face. Okay. Let us continue.
Like,
apparently he gets into specifics
but again, what
about
do you do?
stories
Like,
about him.
change it. And then the worst part about that is when people take a story or a concept and then they add information to it for whatever reason. They create a fiction based on a reality, and then they've determined that that fiction is grounds for you having violated something else. There's a whole bunch of funny stuff about me that is just wildly untrue, and people say that that is the source of the hypocrisy of me betraying some values. It's like, but guys, like, that's not, it didn't actually happen.
Well, so what are some of those things that people say about you that are untrue?
Well, apparently, I am a swinger, I guess. And they don't mean with like a golf club. I guess that means that I go out and sleep around consensually outside of my marriage, which is not true at all.
How did they get that? Where did that come from?
Now, while I'm not a swinger, I have done a bunch of hilarious stuff in my life, fun things, in my opinion, that do actually kind of push the boundaries of what people are comfortable with. Like for example, when I go out to a bar or a club, I will buy drinks for numerous people. Like I'm out having fun. I'll buy a bunch of drinks for people. No, I'll just.
Okay, so for clarity's sake, the reason why people say that Rekieta is into swinging is that a while back, I think over a year ago, I think it just came up on the anniversary of a year ago, Rekieta took a trip to Jamaica with his wife, and he went to a club called Hedonism 2. And Hedonism 2 had interracial cuckolding events and stuff. It was like a sexual, it was for adults, who probably like middle-aged adults mostly, and older people who wanted to spice up their sex life and shit, and do swinging and do interracial play and stuff like that. And he went there, he streamed from his hotel room, and people were able to verify that he was streaming from the hotel room in Jamaica at the time of this event, during the period where they also had the interracial stuff. And so it became, especially because of his relationship with Drexel, and also the fact that Kayla talked on stream about going to a masseuse who would massage her breasts, and she went to this guy like 2 or 3 times. It became like a thing that he was a swinger. So if he's going to sit there and say, people say I'm a swinger because I buy ladies drinks at the bar when me and my wife go out to drink sometimes, that's like a deliberate misrepresentation and lie.
Just walk away, or I'll talk to them. And sometimes that involves meeting people who try to pick you up and take you home. And I don't go home with anybody other than my wife because, well, we're monogamous, like, and we always have been. But that leads people to the idea that maybe we're not, or something.
Oh, is he really just going to not talk about hedonism at all? We know for a fact that he went to that hotel. I want to say he even talked about it to me, and he had just said that, oh, well, we went to this thing. I think what it was he said that he went to the exhibitionism event where, like, you have sex with your wife while other people are having sex with their wives, like in a room, and it's like an exhibitionist thing, or you like sit around naked drinking, like in a public setting at this hotel together with other people who are also naked. And it was just like the interracial stuff was like next week or something, and it wasn't the week he was there. I thought that was his line, because I'm pretty sure that's what he told me. I don't know if that's like a public thing that he stated. If this is new information to people and he only told me that in private, I could be misremembering, but I'm pretty sure that's what he said to me.
Or I have talked about attending a nude beach, for example, and I think it's actually an activity that a lot of people would benefit from when you find out how unsexual it is. But because of that, people start to draw conclusions about what goes on at those places. And it's like, guys, I'm sharing a fun story with you that was so far out of my comfort zone. But then I realized that, that it's really interesting what being around a bunch of other naked people is when it's all consensual, because you realize that like maybe your body dysmorphia issues or your insecurities about yourself can vanish in the wake of everyone's averageness.
Well, I'll say this: I went to Jamaica, and right next to where we stayed, there was a nude beach. And
oh yeah,
if you want to feel good about yourself, you just look over at that nude beach and realize how good you truly have it. No matter how bad you think you look, you just look over there and go like, no, you know what? Not that bad.
and that was honestly a big portion of the story, was that exact sentiment. It's like you're there and you look around, you're like, well, all these people are fat and ugly. Like, they seem happy. What am I worried about? And it was amazingly comforting, like without a hint of irony. It was amazingly comforting to go through that. And I think a lot of people, when you see people discussing relationships and male-female dynamics online, you get these wild caricatures of things. And you know that the people behind the screen watching are not fitting into these caricatures, because they're not even real. They're not real for the.
I think that's only accurate when it comes to like, I think that people need to be more like actively cognizant of the fact that when you see stuff online, it's almost always fake. Like, in a sense, everything that you see is fake. Like, when you see an image or a video, you're not actually witnessing what was recorded. You're witnessing a specific angle and specific like perspective on that thing. So in a very metaphysical sense, you never, everything that you see is fake. However, like for instance with like Finster, like I mentioned that he does angles and shit. Where's Finster? It's important to realize that like this guy, everything that he does on his stream is geared towards making him look as feminine as possible. He's got a downward angle. He has makeup lighting behind the camera. He has everything geared towards making him look a specific way. So when you see him, you must realize that it's fake. But everyone does this. Everyone who has like an online persona is like putting out like a fake version of themselves. Especially people who rely on attractiveness in order to make money. They're always lying the most. And with filters and stuff, they can lie extremely easy and convincingly, especially the people who aren't really thinking about what they're looking at. So in a way, that's true. However, I would say that you don't need to go to a nude beach and walk around with your dongus out, showing off your naked wife to a bunch of black people in Jamaica, in order to realize what I realized by just thinking about it.
People talking, they're not real for the examples given. And so the person there is statistically average, right? Like that's the obvious assumption. And you're like, well, you don't need to look at the dynamics of relationships through the lens of celebrity. You don't need to look at the dynamics of relationships through the lens of Instagram models, because that's not reality. The reality is you. And if you go out and find people engaged in all levels of relationships.
Someone asked us, Josh, what are you saying? Are your eyes really not that far apart in real life? It's all camera angles. I have never had anyone comment that my eyes are far apart. It literally is just some camera angles are really bad. However, I will say this, and this is funny. I got fitted for glasses at some point, and I went to the ophthalmologist, right? And he's taking measurements of my face to give me glasses. And he actually commented, he's like, wow, that can't be right. And then put the thing back on my head and measured again and said, your eyes are really far apart. So yes, they are very far apart. However, certain camera angles make them look like disfigured in how far apart they are, when it's not so bad, I promise.
Relationship, from the one night stand to the literal sex on the beach to the long-term marriage. And you look around and you're like, no, these people are actually just really similar to me on balance. I'm telling you, it is a massive change in your confidence and your perspective on those dynamics. And I think putting us all behind screens and putting these arbiters of male and female realities, people like Pearl or Fresh and Fit or the whatever podcast. They're defining male and female dynamics for a huge audience, and you're like, but they're picking up ludicrous examples that don't reflect reality at all, but then people are soaking it up as if they do. And that to me is wild. And it's literally go out and touch grass, except in this case, the grass is sand, and it's covered in stinky people. Like, go do it. It's funny.
Well,
but yeah, it's true that you shouldn't listen to thoughts and retards like Andrew Tate for like relationship advice. However, his advice is also stupid.
About things people say about you online that are not true. And for the record, when you say you go out to clubs with your family, these are not swingers clubs, right? Just need to be very clear.
Yeah, just like a dance club in a city or a bar. Like they're just places where people go. That's it. So,
that may or may not have swingers at them.
Well, I mean, I got to tell you, the funny thing about rumors about that sort of about life is you start to meet people who are in that live, like they reach out to you or they'll come out to you or whatever, not in a gross way, right? Not in like a, hey, not that way, but like, they're just like, hey, like, are you involved in this? Like, cause I can tell you about it. And you know how it goes. Like when you talk about video games, surprising people reach out to you to talk to you about video games. And you're like, how did you even know I exist? Right? Like you were a developer, you're whatever. Mm-hmm. In the same way that works in every other thing. And as you meet these people, you will be shocked to find out where they are. You're worried about a swingers club. I mean, you are just as likely to encounter swingers in your churches, your grocery stores, everywhere else. They're pretty discreet people. And we'll talk about them as if they're like animals in a documentary. Right. They're pretty discreet people, but I mean, it is a place where they go away from real life to engage in this activity that other people judge them pretty heavily for, but they're everywhere. It's not like there's a checkbox where you're like, I know that this place will have them and this place won't. No, the places you expect that they're not are probably where they're most present. And it's funny to me to see that after like
he's so bad at like just answering the fucking question. I don't even want to finish this clip because it's like it's just him rambling. It's like, are you a swinger? Well, gosh, swingers, we talk about them like they're like people, like animals, like lions, and like a cage going like rawr and stuff. But really, they could be grandma at church. You'd never know. It's like, that's not the fucking question, bro. It's not what was fucking asked of you. I don't know. I guess just doesn't answer. He's so busy driving around. How could he possibly have time to swing with all the chaperoning he has to do and all the teaching he does?
Contract that are under an NDA and I can't talk about, but I've been pretty open about it to the extent I can, where my contract is annual and then we'll talk again. Probably leading up to January here, I would assume that talk is going to happen very soon. And then we'll see where we go from there. I have no idea.
Awesome.
So I want to obviously continue working with them. I like them. I like the freedom that it gives. And I think that freedom is critical for creators because we see what YouTube's trying to do to us on very important issues.
Where's my Rumble contract? I don't disagree. Here's my question. Where's my Rumble contract? I'm cheap. $200,000 exclusivity for the year. Actually, I'll be nice. I'll do $100,000. However, if you want the N-word off the table, it's $200,000. It's $100,000 to suspend the N-word license, the permanent N-word license that I hold in my coat pocket at all times. That's how it works. Anything else on this? Oh, this is cringe as fuck. So, they're talking about a child being abused, and I can't remember the full detail because it's a really, really gross story. But I think it was like a kid who was kidnapped, and they were wearing diapers when they were discovered. And Rekieta decides to crack wise about this. And there's a woman who reacts to it live, and you can see like she's like viscerally appalled by what he just said. Sorry, I got a Karen here. I'm stylizing my hair. I'm getting those frosted tips in so I can Karen farms it the fuck up right now.
They didn't believe a kid when she said she was in pain. They didn't help her to the.
Okay, I did not talk about this on stream because it's so frustrating. I'll summarize this very quickly. There's a girl in the UK. She has a very rare condition where she is in chronic pain. However, the condition happens to be something that's over self-diagnosed by mothers as a form of Munchausen's by proxy. So when doctors hear that there's a child that has this chronic pain condition, they automatically assume that it's Munchausen's by proxy, because usually it is. The incidence of Munchausen's by proxy are larger than true incidence of this very rare chronic disorder. So the child comes in, the mother says it's this chronic pain disorder. The staff, this is in England, by the way, so the medical doctors are basically a fucking police force there. They say, no, you're crazy. Your child is fine. You have Munchausen's by proxy. We're taking her from you, and we're going to run tests on her to prove that she is fine. So she goes completely off any pain medication. She's writhing around in agony for a long time. She's wearing diapers because she's shitting herself because she's in so much pain. And the doctors basically steal the child from her and refuse to give her, let the mother even see her, because they are acting on the assumption that she is abusive. This doesn't, and apparently the woman in charge of this whole child abduction thing is infamous in the country for doing this kind of shit, where she jumps in, takes children, and asks questions later, and has been formally reprimanded for being an insane sociopath cunt multiple times. So eventually it goes to the courts. The courts find out that she does actually have this chronic pain condition, that the hospital has been misdiagnosing and mistreating her for a long time, that the parents suffered and then the mother committed suicide because she knew that her daughter was in pain and there was nothing that she could do to get her back, so she killed herself. And then the court found this was completely on the fault of the hospital and this insane cunt that worked for the government. It's a real fucked up story. I didn't want to talk about it, but without giving you the backstory, the profundity of how gross this joke is will not make any sense.
They didn't believe a kid when she said she was in pain. They didn't help her to the. They left her to sit in her own excrement because they wanted to see if she could get out of the bed and walk.
Maybe she was a diaper fetishist.
Well,
do you consider that one, Megan?
Megan, there's one part of the analysis. There's one part of the analysis that I think that is important to.
She's doing a reboot
to kind of. I'm saying that you're right. The jury found all these things.
Professional stand-up comedian Nicholas Rekieta takes his shot, and it's a miss. That's okay. Apparently, you don't have to be funny to be a comedian. You just got to live in LA to be a professional comedian these days. He's taking tips from the master of the comedy dark arts. Juju the cow himself is helping him on his way. It depends on the child, doesn't it? All right, sorry, I didn't want to talk about that, but it was necessary for me to make fun of Juju, so I had to do it. All else fails for 5 says the Munchausen's by proxy was in Florida. The UK ones were the ones that murdered the baby. The Maya case was in Florida? I didn't know that. I thought that was in the UK. If that's in Florida, that's fucking shameful. How the fuck did they let that happen? I thought it was in the UK because I remember seeing that they had won a judgment for £240 million. I'm pretty sure. That's crazy.